Happy lunch hour, gang. All right, we're going to go into something a little off the wall here. Not something that we need to be concerned about, but something we need to keep in the back of our heads that just maybe. Let's go back to 9/11. Okay, remember planes crashing in the building and 3,000 plus people getting killed? Remember all that? Yeah. Remember all the questions about Building 7, how that one came down? Or the questions on how did the building just pancake down so cleanly? The conspiracy theories out there that maybe the government was involved? Just saying, okay? Whether you believe it or not, you know you've heard those speculations. How many of you guys know who Frank Turple was? Okay, there's a name for you. Going back to 1971, Frank Turple was a ex-CIA agent that, after leaving the CIA, he hitched his wagon to Muammar Gaddafi and Idi Amin, providing them with intelligence, weapons, mercenaries, for them to do what they were doing. I seem to remember a Pan Am jet over Lockerbie, Scotland, that Muammar Gaddafi took down. Let's just put it that way. It's not unheard of that we could feasibly have rogue agents within our own government. Okay? And I'm just going to let you stew on that one for a second. Now, let's fast forward to May of 2025. How many of you guys are thrilled with the performance so far of Kash Patel, Dan Bongino? I don't know, you could even go out to Pam Bondi, okay? Or maybe we want to talk about Elon Musk and Doge. Congress, that even after all this fraud was found, they haven't put a vote up at all. Haven't eliminated anything. We talk about the big, beautiful bill. All the screaming and yelling from the Democrats about, Medicare cuts, which are, of course, are lies. It's cutting the fraud out of Medicare. Oh my God, you're going to take a bunch of Americans off of Medicare. No, we're going to take a bunch of illegals off of Medicare, but no Americans are going to be affected. But then let's talk about all the job cuts, right? We know we want to close the Department of Education. There was just a ruling out of the Supreme Court yesterday about a couple of government employees that sued because they were terminated. And SCOTUS said, nope, sorry, the president's authorized to terminate your positions. Go find another job. But let's take a look at other things. Remember Kash Patel saying that he was going to close down the Hoover building and reopen it the next day as a museum? Remember that? Okay. Let's take a look at this. We have 1,500 FBI agents and roughly 3,000 CIA agents and NSA agents that found themselves out of work or are about to. These are people who have security clearances, knowledge of training, or knowledge and training that most in law enforcement don't even have, okay? Some in the military, most in the military don't even have, okay? Access to information that next to nobody has. Just because somebody's security clearance was revoked because they no longer work for the CIA or the FBI, they no longer need it, doesn't mean that their brain got erased. Okay? And again, I want you to think about this. It's nothing that we have any information about, but it's interesting that Mrs. P found a bunch of this information in the foreign media talking about this. Okay. What are the odds that we have, I don't know, 0.01% of those people that were fired that have a grudge against this president, this administration? They know the people. Again, I go back to 9/11. Do you think anybody knew of the guys that flew the planes into the World Trade Center or the Pentagon? Shanksville, Pennsylvania? They might have. Somebody knew of them, for sure. Okay. Was anybody involved? We'll never know. The government may know, but they'll never tell us. And hell, it's been, 60 years since Kennedy was assassinated, and we still are asking for that information? Jeffrey Epstein files, you think we're ever going to see those? No. Okay. The truth about what happened on 9/11, do you ever think we're going to see anything about that? No. Okay. They'll never admit it. Area 51, right? You can go into all this, and call me a conspiracy theorist, call me whatever you want to call me on this one. I'm not saying it's a probability, but I'm saying it's a possibility. That all you need, again, is one guy, kind of like Frank Turple, who says, you know what? I'm anti-Trump. I'm anti-MAGA. I'm anti-conservative. A lot of FBI agents like that. Okay. This ain't my country. I'm going to do whatever I can to take it out. Terrorist act, assassination plot, whatever. These are people that have the means, have the training, potentially have, no longer getting, the information that might have a bone to pick. Because honestly, the skills you acquire in the CIA don't really transfer too well to the private sector. Unless, of course, you turn into a mercenary. The skills that you get in the FBI, oh, okay. Maybe you go be a cop somewhere. But what kind of grudge are you going to hold throughout your life? I was an FBI agent, and now I'm Barney Fife. Okay? This is why so many people go, they thought these were lifetime appointments, and they're not. There's security on the other side of this. You know, debriefing these people. How many of these terminated law enforcement, we'll just leave intelligence operatives, are going to have to be watched for the rest of their lives because they may wind up participating in some nefarious actions? It's something to think about because it's not ever been speculated and it's not never been proven. It's happened before. It can happen again. How many people said there was a problem with Butler, Pennsylvania? How did that kid get through? Remember all the incompetence we saw from the Secret Service? What if the person on the roof wasn't one of those kids? What if the person on the roof now was a trained operative who knew a hell of a lot more than some young punk? Imagine what that does to the country. You think we're divided now? I mean, hell, when we had the 2 attempts on Trump's life already, there were a whole bunch of people on TikTok going, damn, he missed. We need somebody with better aim. There's a lot of people in this country that hope for something like that. I don't care how much I hated Barack Obama, how much I hated Joe Biden, Bill Clinton. Never was I out there going, gee, somebody unalive the guy. There's plenty of people out there like that. And now, because we have these former employees being terminated, what are the odds that one of them decide, hey, you know what? I'm getting even. Everybody bitches about Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, Pam Bondi not doing their job. Nobody ever thinks about it. All the Twitterati out there or whatever, nobody ever thinks about it's a little more difficult than what you're saying. You know, this isn't, what was the movie, Total Recall, where they just wipe a wand in front of your head and all of a sudden all your memories are gone. Those people still know what to do. Those people on the wrong side can be a serious threat. It's not something that we have to worry about. It's probably never something that we'd ever know about if it ever happens. But it's something to keep in the back of your mind. That what happened to these people? What chip on their shoulder do they have? Because there aren't a whole lot of stories of guys that said, hey, you know what? I was an ex-CIA agent and I decided to go open a hardware store. Or I took a job as an accountant somewhere. Every one of them is trained. Just like I've said many times, you know, in the Army, I'll pretty much guess I can speak for the other branches as well. Everybody is infantry first, and whatever your MOS was, second. Every single one of them was trained on use of a rifle, use of claymores, for example. The same goes for the FBI. Just because some guy was a desk jockey doesn't mean he didn't still have to go qualify with the weapon on a range. And the range is a little bit more than silhouettes. Okay, doesn't mean they still didn't have to go through all the training that the other ones did. Will we see another 9/11? Someday. Sure, guaranteed there'll be another terrorist activity or terrorist act large scale in the United States. I mean, you had the first Trade Center bombing in the 90s. You had Oklahoma City. You know, we've had the World Trade Centers, obviously, and many others. You know, small scale, large scale, whether nightclub shootings or whatever. It goes again to what we talk about all the time. Always have your head on a swivel. Be careful who you trust. You think those guys aren't good at gaining somebody's trust? Counterintelligence is something that they do all the time. It's something they're trained in. How to befriend people until they turn on you. I'm not saying every one of them's bad. Not even close. But all it takes is one. Pinball out.